dogs!
A huge surge in foreigners committing sex offences in Britain can be revealed. The number of foreigners convicted for sex crimes increased by 62%.
Over 40,000 predators roam the streets, with a new assault every 7 minutes. 87% of women and children remain at risk. The public's patience with Starmer's complacency has run out. At 6:10 p.m., fathers raised their voices, chanting, "Stop the boats," demanding the return of capital punishment for grooming gangs. Starmer's response? A statement dismissing the urgency. "We acknowledge sexual violence, but it's unrelated to the offender's background. We must continue tolerating minorities." The 210,000 victims of sexual violence weren't interested in his words. By 6:23 p.m., the migration center was surrounded. 8 additional units arrived as rocks and bottles rained down on riot shields. Then came the chilling radio command, "Stop the mob. Ensure no casualties among the migrants." Meanwhile, in South Birmingham, 5 illegal migrants launched an attack. Starmer now stands accused of two-faced hypocrisy. He claims nationality and religion don't matter, yet in the Birmingham assault, those details were hidden from the public. The police response? Walk in groups, avoid dangerous streets. Both the force and Starmer refused to confront the real issue. On Sunday alone, 380 illegal immigrants arrived on small boats. As the public's frustration boiled over, black-masked mobs ignited violence. At 6:50 p.m., officers were ambushed, caught in the chaos.
At 6:50 sharp, officers were caught in a trap.
Fireworks erupted from 3 directions, sending officers tumbling to the ground. 4 additional platoons were rushed in from quieter areas. Opposition leader Farage exposed Starmer's failures, revealing that 99% of prisons are full, with 40,000 criminals set free under Starmer's plan. The government's solution? A promise to add 14,000 new prison spaces over the next 6 years. As tensions reached a breaking point, the public began taking matters into their own hands. From London to Birmingham, parents declared a red-level threat. The reason? A knife attack every 10 minutes and a sexual assault every 7. Schoolchildren returned home in complete darkness, with over 60% now at risk. At 7:10 p.m., a counter-protest erupted, hundreds of flags waving in foreign script. In London, one protester argued that grooming gangs shouldn't face capital punishment, claiming, "You must understand their cultural norms." The protests spiraled out of control. 126 arrests, 6 vans set on fire, and 21 storefronts reduced to rubble. The looting began. What started as a desperate plea from frustrated fathers quickly descended into total chaos. In courts across the nation, defense lawyers argued, "Consider their background. The attacker deserves a 7-month reduction," adding, "In their home country, the age of consent is 14." Thousands of protesting mothers gathered at Parliament Square, but they didn't hear the key argument. Nigel Farage presented his solution: deport 600,000 migrants back to Africa and the Middle East. Starmer quickly dismissed the idea as unfeasible. The next demand? Remove thousands of foreign nationals from prisons to free up 60% of capacity. At a Washington briefing, Donald Trump suggested that Britain needed to take immediate and harsh action. He described London as an unrecognizable place and warned that the influx of illegal migrants was leading Britain towards self-destruction. Starmer, however, clung to the Human Rights Act, which prevents the deportation of hundreds of thousands. European leaders stood by Starmer's stance, advocating for tolerance. But Trump wasn't finished. He hinted that Britain's position in NATO might be re-evaluated. His proposed solution? A crackdown on the spread of Sharia in London and aggressive action against radical extremists. Pointing to the US ICE deportation squads, which had removed over 800,000 illegals, he questioned why Britain, under Starmer, had imported thousands of migrants on small boats. Karma knew exactly what kind of battle he was stepping into. He is the former British prosecutor, an expert in the dark underbelly of crime. From grooming gangs to machete attacks, zombie knives, and home invasions, he knows the system better than anyone. This isn't a man who can hide behind the excuse of inexperience. The idea that he's still learning simply doesn't hold water. Families are left paralyzed with fear, watching as known predators are allowed to roam free, just weeks after conviction. Police officers, overwhelmed and frustrated, track dangerous criminals, only to see them released by bureaucratic decisions made in Whitehall. Over 40,000 potential repeat offenders are now walking the streets without proper supervision. The deterrent is gone. If you target a woman, you know the prisons are at 99% capacity. If you harm a child, you know that deportation flights are grounded by human rights laws. Starmer has effectively told the criminal world that British justice is on hold. He chose to release predators rather than secure the borders, to shelter foreign nationals instead of protecting local families. The chaos gripping the nation is no accident of policy. For months, experts warned that the SDS-40 scheme would place women in direct danger, yet the government pushed forward regardless. This is the stark reality Nigel Farage is exposing to the world. In other nations, women carry pepper spray to protect themselves, but here, they face an entirely different threat. The opposition isn't merely whispering their accusations anymore, they're shouting them from the rooftops. Every single day, £6 million of taxpayer money goes up in smoke on hotel bills, and Farage insists this is no incompetence, but a deliberate political strategy. Keir Starmer explicitly stated during his campaign that he needed 10 years to fully implement his vision for the country. Critics argue that this timeline isn't about economic recovery, but demographic engineering. The numbers are cold and cynical. Migrants arrive in Britain, immediately processed, protected, and housed in heated accommodation while British pensioners are left to freeze. For 5 years, they are supported by the state, shielded from the crushing cost of living crisis that weighs down the average family. Then comes the passport, and with it, the vote. Farage argues that Starmer is importing his future electorate because he knows he's already lost the current one. The Prime Minister knows that the traditional working class feels betrayed and is on the brink of revolt. He's aware his approval ratings are plummeting among the very people who built this country. So, according to the opposition, he's ensuring his political survival by creating a new class of dependency. This is a dirty game played with taxpayer money. Every hotel room booked is a vote secured for the future. Every amnesty granted is loyalty bought. Starmer isn't merely managing a border crisis, he's constructing a political safety net for himself. Critics argue that he needs his 10-year window because it gives him the chance to cycle hundreds of thousands of new arrivals into the voting booth before his time is up. He's gambling against the British public, betting that by the time the next general election rolls around, the demographic shift will be irreversible. While the native population struggles to get a GP appointment, the government prioritizes the comfort of those with no right to be here. Farage warns that this is the ultimate betrayal of democracy. The borders aren't open because the government is weak, they're open because the government is hungry for power. They are replacing a skeptical electorate with a grateful one. It's election rigging in slow motion. The most bitter irony? The British taxpayer is forced to foot the bill for their own political replacement. In Starmer's Britain, a woman clutches a panic alarm as the police tell her to walk in groups, fully aware that using a defensive spray could land her a criminal record. The crowds surrounding hotels tonight are driven by this exact betrayal. They witness a justice system that freezes grandmothers' pensions while spending £50,000 a year to house a foreign criminal. It's a complete reversal of priorities. Police retreat from no-go zones, not due to lack of courage, but because they are handcuffed by a political system that fears community unrest more than crime. We have reached the breaking point. The social contract has disintegrated. When the government forbids you from defending yourself and refuses to secure the streets, the public inevitably breaks. Whitehall watches the migration centers burn and debates definitions of intolerance, completely blind to the reality that British women now know they are on their own. The ban on self-defense, the refusal to deport foreign offenders, the collapse of the MAPR monitoring system, these aren't isolated failures. They are the ingredients of a national emergency. Starmer promised to end violence against women, but instead, he shattered the public's belief that the state could protect them. Britain is now the only Western nation where leadership believes telling women to avoid dangerous areas is a legitimate security strategy. Tonight's unrest didn't happen in isolation. The Home Office had clear data warning that releasing thousands of prisoners early would lead to a rise in sexual offenses, that boat arrivals included unvetted men, and that banning self-defense tools leaves the vulnerable at the mercy of the strong. Every one of these red flags was flagged for immediate review, but Starmer acted on none of them. Officials claim the Prime Minister personally refused to challenge the European Court of Human Rights, citing international obligations. International obligations. Meanwhile, hotels are under siege, streets are barricaded, and police vans are torn apart by mobs who know the system has failed. A government that values the rights of foreign predators over the safety of British children becomes a government complicit in abuse. Under Starmer's watch, the threat level to women has soared, and citizens have declared a red-level emergency, police lost control of entire neighborhoods, and Whitehall became paralyzed by its own tolerance. This is how a state loses its legitimacy, not in one catastrophic failure, but in thousands of uninvestigated assaults. Whitehall can deny it. Starmer can spin it. But the public felt the truth in the flames of tonight's unrest. Critics warn that Britain is being run by those who would rather prosecute a woman for carrying a defensive spray than deport the man chasing her. If the rioters had demanded green energy, the conversation would have been open. But because the violence stemmed from a public terrified by unchecked predation, Whitehall's instinct wasn't to solve the crisis, it was to demonize the outcry. And that's the moment a government stops serving its people and begins serving its dogma. This wasn't just a disturbance. It was a final warning, a stark reminder that Britain's streets no longer belong to the taxpayers who fund the system. Mothers are no longer just advising caution, they're sounding the alarm, they are installing tracking apps on their daughters' phones and enforcing strict curfews before dusk. The fear of sexual predation has fundamentally reshaped the rhythm of daily life. As police retreat from high-risk neighborhoods, desperate families are turning to forbidden solutions. Underground networks providing illegal pepper sprays to women have surged in major cities. Local fathers are organizing unofficial patrols near schools, stepping in to do what the state refuses to. When the government spends £6 million a day housing unvetted males while grandmothers freeze, the public inevitably creates its own order. This is not just incompetence. To many, it's seen as a calculated political replacement. Critics argue that Starmer isn't just mishandling the border, he's actively importing a future electorate to secure his power for the next decade. The government believes it can buy loyalty with hotel rooms and passports, but they are seriously underestimating the fury of the taxpaying class. When a serious assault occurs, the first instinct of the authorities is to hide the religion and nationality of the perpetrator. Official reports are routinely stripped of any reference to cultural background or immigration status before being released to the press. If a predator is part of the SDS-40 early release scheme, that detail is often buried to protect the government's image. The focus quickly shifts to preventing community tension rather than warning women about the dangers in their midst. Senior officials argue that revealing the demographic trends of these crimes would empower the far right, while skeptics counter that concealing the truth only puts more innocent lives at risk. The public is fed vague statements about complex needs, but the reality of imported criminality is erased from the record. The priority is no longer public safety, it's narrative control. Farage has labeled the SDS-40 scheme as a state-sanctioned betrayal of every victim in the country. The Reform UK leader is calling for the immediate creation of specialized deportation squads, modeled after America's ICE units, to remove foreign offenders. But Keir Starmer dismisses this as legally impossible under current human rights conventions. Farage insists that the former director of public prosecutions knows exactly who these grooming gangs are and how they operate. He points to the glaring double standard in how justice is applied. When a British citizen protests, the law is unyielding, but when a foreign national commits a serious offense, the system bends to accommodate their cultural context. Farage argues this is not a case of accidental negligence, but a deliberate weakening of national borders. He frames the refusal to deport as an outright surrender of sovereignty. Meanwhile, economic analysts are increasingly raising serious concerns about the long-term consequences of these policies.